Hi, and welcome to Newsmakers, the only local show that brings together Santa Barbara's top journalists and local political leaders for inside analysis and behind-the-scenes commentary on the most important news events in our community. I'm your host, Jerry Roberts. Tonight, our all-star panel will talk about the coverage and fallout of these stories. The first broadcast debate of the mayor's race draws a big crowd and mixed reviews at City College. As voters begin casting ballots, 2 of the 3 district campaigns for council remain too close to call. As the clock ticks, planning for new pot regulations plods along in Santa Barbara and around the state, and our state senator jumps in with both feet into a colleague's audacious bid to topple California's longtime senior U.S. senator. Our panel tonight, Nick Welsh, executive editor of the Santa Barbara Independent. Josh Molina, political reporter for Newshawk. Kelsey Brugger, national affairs correspondent for The Independent. And former city council member Dale Francisco. Thank you all for being here. So Nick, we all had to sit out in the Garvin Theater cheap seats, but you were right up there on the stage asking the tough questions. And I know we all had a different view of what happened. Who did you think did the best up there?
Oh, good question. It was, Frank, I think,
Frank Hotchkiss.
Frank Hotchkiss, the sole conservative Republican in the race, definitely separated himself out from the pack. I don't know if that was a headfirst dive into the wood chipper or if that helped him, but he definitely distinguished himself. He is short, sweet, grumpy, and didn't mind being booed, told people if the housing was too expensive, they should get another job or move out of town. Did not sugarcoat it. Sitting next to him was Angel Martinez, his real rival in this. Angel was uncommonly subdued, was not up to his usual vivacity. I thought Cassie did a pretty good job. Cassie Murillo. Sorry, Santa Barbara, as everybody knows, so it's a first-name town. Cassie Murillo.
You know, we're national now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you knew. You can get us on the internet. Go ahead.
I thought Cassie Murillo did pretty well. She talks about how people think I'm mayoral, and sometimes that sounds a little bit like, and people like me from Sally Field's Oscar acceptance speech. But she did remind people that, she is the mayor. She's an unapologetic progressive, and she is trying to represent everybody in the city, not just white people.
Well, you reminded her.
Well,
your question to her was, how are you going to become a consensus builder
and she didn't really
instead of
answer
an
that.
advocate for progressive? No, she did not. Did you think she answered it?
Nick, that was a real softball question. Come on. I mean, you hammered Frank with the question about global warming. And I think you know that his comeback was probably the funniest part of the night when he asked you if you had a question in the middle of your soliloquy there. But
that was pretty good.
Did you agree with me though that Frank won? And if elections are about choices, he's the one who drew the choices most clearly.
I think Frank gave a very strong performance that night. And interestingly, from my point of view, I thought Hal Conklin gave a very strong performance. I think Hal came across the way a lot of people want a Santa Barbara mayor to come across. He seemed calm, he seemed rational, sounded like he had ideas.
This is why we never bring him on this show.
I understand. I agree with you completely. So I thought Frank and Hal both did very well that night.
Yeah, I think Hal he came across like everybody's second favorite beer, and he.
That's a good slogan.
He was very smooth. Again, it's like on Hell, we need leadership. We need plans and
plans for plans.
And we need plans for plans. But he says it in an optimistic way, and sort of there's a upbeat quality to him when he talks about we have problems but we need to move forward. Whereas when Angel talks about it, it's kind of grim. And so I think Hal comes off like he's a grown up and he knows how to dance.
Your story focused on the dynamic between Angel and Hotchkiss, because Angel's trying to pull from Frank's natural base. How did you think that came out?
Well, it's a good contrast because Frank is singling Angel out, and he's actually portraying himself as the believer of Santa Barbara. He's actually the good guy in this role because Angel is bad-mouthing city staff. He's bad-mouthing the city for not being able to recruit businesses. And Frank is sort of taking the other position, which is, hey, we're not that bad.
Hey, we're the
Relax.
best little city in the world.
You know, so and
Almost Reagan-esque, one might say.
One could say that.
Delivering a conservative message with a smile.
Well, but that's sort of been Angel's approach as well, because what's his tagline? The best small city in America.
we
right?
could be. We says we could be. Frank has a likability, whether you agree with his politics or not. He has a likability because you get the sense that he's not lying to you, that he's not sugarcoating anything. He is who he
He
is.
sure didn't on the homeless. I mean,
No.
it was just, they were just looking for a handout.
He doesn't have manufactured answers.
Yeah.
Right? So, and with Angel, especially with that debate, he was just kind of angry, talking at you. Like he was not engaged in sort of, other than his joke about if they open a pot shop on State Street, it better be a nice one. That was pretty funny, but he was just kind of talking at you. So I thought Frank did the best in terms of standing out, and he did make the room laugh a little bit a few times.
Even though they were booing at him too, but I don't think he cared that they were booing at him. I thought that was, I mean, he was smiling through it all. And obviously, playing to people who weren't in that.
There isn't anyone in that room who is
Gonna be for free.
who's going to have their mind changed.
That's right.
By whatever Frank says. So why not play into his base who's watching or listening and be true to himself? And he was smart, I think, in how he played that.
You're a young millennial.
By the way, did you get the Sally Field reference?
I was waiting for someone to say that. I was about to say, Jerry, did you get that?
So, but half the campaign is pitched at you. Certainly, Angel's entire campaign is
I
pitched.
do-
Who are you going to vote for? You decided yet?
Is this water or a latte?
I've had so much caffeine that I'm just ready to fire back. I have seen a lot of Angel's social media advertisements pop up on Facebook and Instagram, certainly. I won't disclose who I'm going to vote for, of course.
Who are you leaning towards?
I'm not going to say. But I was following your tweets, actually, from the...
I'm glad someone was.
From the event. It seemed, it seemed like it's a crowded field, and...
That was the thing about it. I mean, I agree, Hal got paid as a corporate flack for 15 years. Of course he's smooth. Of course he's an adult. Of course he presents. But between him and Kathy and Bandy White, I mean, who broke out? Who distinguished?
I think Hal did, because poor Bendy, here's a guy who knows more than everybody else in the room combined. And he got passed over 2 times.
Yeah, well, he sat in the wrong seat, for starters.
So
People
that's
listening at home didn't see
it was
that.
it was not a strong night for Bendy. Kathy, people who are concerned she's just going to be too radical. I think she's not going to get it. And so if you don't want to go for Frank, Angel, not sure what he stands for. He hasn't been around. How he's steeped in tradition, yet he has sort of a forward thinking, he's an outsider.
And he has the CAP's endorsement.
And he's got the CAP's endorsement. So I thought
Do
he
you
did
think,
pretty
what
well.
do you think his name recognition is among people who are likely to vote?
55 and older probably know him. If you're...
How about the millennial?
Well, millennials don't vote, Jerry. You're
Well,
forgetting that.
you said you're going to vote.
I'm a news reporter.
They need to have a drop-off box in the funk zone. If
There
you
we
want
go.
the millennials
Well,
to
I
vote.
can't believe Angel hasn't suggested that.
All right, first. Okay, so as of today, who's in first and who's in second?
I still think Kathy's the front runner because I think she's got incredible name recognition and she is friendly, like she said. So I think she's out front, and she does have the Democratic Party working really hard
Best
for her.
organization.
So I think, but
Who's in second?
probably Frank.
What do you think? First and second?
I don't know. I mean, this is one of the most confusing political campaigns I've seen in Santa Barbara. It's very, very unusual to have this many talented people to choose from. And I'm not going to name any names here, but I would say that certainly in the opinions of the people at this table, you could make a case for any one of the 5.
First and second.
That doesn't happen.
As of today.
I would
It's a
probably...
simple question.
Kathy and Hal.
Kathy and Hal, first and second.
Frank and Kathy.
Wrong. Josh has lurched into the truth. Kathy and Frank.
So why do you think so many of the people who brought Frank to the dance originally, when he first ran, the
That's a good
Westbys,
question.
why do you think they've sort of thrown him under the bus and jumped on board with Angel?
I don't think, at least from what I know, that people have thrown Frank under the bus. But one of the things that you will see, I think, among people who really think about what does a mayor do, or what does a council member do for that matter, part of what you do is you build coalitions. And I would say there are two people in this race, Frank on one side and Kathy on the other, who pretty much go it alone. Now, Kathy's always going to have people with her because she's a progressive Democrat. I have never seen Kathy build things with other people. In fact, I've seen her spring things on council. Frank is a little bit the same way. He's a bit of a loner on things. And that is something that I think a lot of people think that may not work for me.
Great question. Great answer. Really, really good. All right. Council races. What's going on in the 4th District? Who's winning?
I bet the Independent endorses Hal based off of your commentary
We'll
there.
know. We'll know.
Well, now,
But
We'll
I'm
know
used-
soon.
we'll know when I write it.
I'm using that as a transition because
Nice.
I think that
Nice.
yeah,
Very good.
I think that the Independent took whatever air was left in Jim Scaffidi's District 4 campaign out by endorsing Kristen Sneddon, which
Didn't go with the party. Fuck the party.
I think that that's a huge endorsement for her, and I think that people do vote on the Independent ticket. Just a lot of casual voters who read the Independent in Santa Barbara who are not hardcores like we are. There's a lot going on, of course. This whole Kristen Sneddon, Jim Scaffidi issue is really, it's a hostile situation. The Democratic Party is not happy with Kristen Sneddon at all. And they are going to burn some bridges here. And she is gaining momentum. And I think it's a race between Sneddon and Higgins at this point, because Higgins kind of has his own lane, and Sneddon is kind of, she's far surpassed Scafidi in terms of buzz, and we'll see if that happens in terms of votes. But I think it's a race between those two at this point.
Do you think Higgins sneaks
Absolutely, I agree. I think that Higgins is a strong candidate. I don't know, were any of you at the Methodist Church last
Yeah.
week for that?
Oh,
Okay.
no, miss that one.
So I think, and I'm partial to Jay, but I think Jay came across as the most...
Former Republican, now running
Former
the Klein
Republican.
estate. Yeah.
I think Jay came across as the most human, the most open. He was certainly the funniest of any of the people up there. He seemed much more relaxed. And that may seem, oh, who cares about that? Well, voters look at, who is this person? Is this somebody who seems like he's a good person that I can support, right? That's really important. And I think, Joshua, you're absolutely correct. You've got the Democratic Party at war with each other, different factions of them, on this Scafidi versus Sneddon thing. And Sneddon kind of came out of left field, as far as I knew. I wasn't inside, obviously, on the discussions there. But she's obviously running a much stronger campaign than Scafidi.
Yeah. Did they let you come in on the interviews for the endorsements?
Some of them.
Which ones? How do they decide which ones are allowed to come in? Just depends. Did you
Yeah.
sit in on Kristen?
I really can't talk about those off-the-record meetings, Jerry.
Is it a smoky room?
Something
We
like
bring
that.
the smoke.
All right. Why did you pass over Warner McGrew in the other?
That was a
district?
tough one. That was a real tough one. Warner was really hard to resist. I mean, he knows so much and he's been around so long. But I think that worked against him as well. I think Eric just has this energy about him, and he's a young dude. He's 38 years old. He's got a young family, and there's just this idea that what we need is on the council sort of a breadth of representation, and having young parents with young kids, and he's been steeped in politics and government, working for Salud, Carbajal, and Naomi Schwartz for 14
great.
years. So he knows how the machine is put together and how to get stuff done. He's not a novice, and he just has this incredible energy about him. It doesn't come off.
So you're saying Warner was low energy when he?
He wasn't as high energy. I mean, Warner that was a tough one for us.
Do you think that the police and fire endorsement of Warner could carry that race just in terms of organization? And
I'll tell you, so I still walk precincts, so I talk to lots of people. And what I'm hearing in the 5th is I'm hearing a lot of support for Warner. Now, that may be because the voters that I talk to are in the older category, but the support I hear for him is unusual, very, very strong. And I would agree with you, Nick. I understand the argument about having younger people with children on the council, but I also understand, having been on council myself, it may make sense for a young person to focus on their career and raising their family and let people who are out of that very, very demanding time in their life focus on taking care of the city's issues.
You know, I think Warner's lived there a long time, and he's one of the nicest, most likable guys, and people there know him. So I think he'll do
And
very
name
well.
recognition.
And name
to
recognition.
go back to your point, really quality people. I mean, it's just,
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, we're not getting the
and don't get me wrong, I like Eric. Eric is a great guy.
diversity that we were supposed to get out of district elections, but pretty good candidates. I think, all
Well, I
around.
mean, we may not be getting racial diversity, but we're getting strong candidates for the most part. You know, there's a couple outliers.
Age
But,
diversity we're getting.
Yeah, you know, and
Certain
so,
amount of ideological diversity.
you know, in District 5, right, anyone, or in District 6, anyone can win. You know, District 4,
District 6.
5, sorry, 5. I think you live to catch people, you know, messing up the district.
No, I just, I used to get
Luciferi
caught-
Jack Usaferi could, you know, he's in it for the long haul, right? His
No,
time
he's
might
raising
come.
the
You know,
interest-
Down the road.
the anti-Cox campaign could pay off. You know, you never go wrong kicking Cox.
Do you think that
Right.
Greg Hart is sitting on that $120,000 till the last week? He's going to drop that 100. I mean,
What?
Hart is running. Well, he's going to be in here shortly, but he's running to. I mean, he's just going to. He has a seat till Janet Wolf steps down, and he's going to run for Soups, right?
Is she stepping
Likely.
down?
I said when she was stepping down. You just lived to catch people, don't you?
Well, Greg's trying to win with doing as little as possible, but the
That's working.
sort of the wild card though is the party, right? So the party typically goes really hard for all of their slate. They're all on Kathy right now. Kathy is the number one priority, so they're neglecting Friedman a little bit. They're not worried about Greg at all. I mean, I think
Right.
that would be the most stunning upset ever if Jack Usaferi were to beat Greg Hart. But Eric could get caught in all of this because
Yeah,
Warner is
that's a good
super likable, and he does have name
And
recognition.
he's got a lot of connections. I mean,
Yeah.
they go back. All right. Does anybody think that Measure C is going to lose
No.
the sales tax? Anybody? No. Okay, we'll put that one down as a win. All right. Turning now to the saga. Are you going to write a book about all this, by the way?
It's a good idea.
It is a good, somebody should. So Kelsey has been, it was 50 different cities this week, I think, that you covered hearings about regulations
That's right.
for implementing
Cannabis.
recreational marijuana come January. But Lompoc, it
Head of the
turns
pack.
out, is the place that really wants it. They're just plodding along in Santa Barbara. What's going on in Lompoc?
So in Lompoc on Tuesday, the city council 4-1 vote decided they are going to permit all kinds of cannabis operations and businesses. So that's everything from a dispensary to a delivery service to manufacturing to on-site consumption, so lounges, which is
Really?
right, which
Hookah bars in Lompoc.
sort of. So it's
Extra
and
potent.
also that they're not.
Lompoc Dam. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And they're also not going to limit the number of dispensaries that can exist in the city.
Really?
And
No
allowing,
limit?
And allowing the free market. The argument being that, you know, you're not going to have 30 landlords who are going to rent to people. Lompoc is a city of 40,000 people. It's not, and there are restrictions based on, they can't be within 600 feet of a school or youth center because that's mandated by the state.
Here's what I understand. So say there's, I don't know, 15, 20 dispensaries in Lompoc. Say there are 2 in Santa Barbara. So will there be a price differential? Do people have to charge the same, or can you, there's no
people don't.
price controls?
No.
So people could just flock up to Lompoc where supply is,
That would be
Supply,
really
demand,
surprising if there were 15 dispensaries in Lompoc.
that's too many?
I just don't think that there are going to be 15 viable businesses.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. If it's like Canada, if Lompoc becomes like Canada for people to go up and buy cheap stuff.
Lompoc is going to be like Canada.
Well, on a smaller scale.
Did you understand that reference?
See, old people, when they buy their medicine sometime,
Yeah.
they go to Canada
Or what
because they're
about-
cheaper there. But,
Yeah.
So that's all.
I get it.
That's all I was saying.
I get it.
It's,
Okay.
It's not a millennial thing.
Let's have a record of the number of times we use millennial in one show.
Okay. All right. I think I hit it. What's going on in Santa Barbara? They're just
So-
plotting.
Sorry, young professional.
There we go. That's What is the
Do you
acronym?
qualify? Are you still a
YoPro?
young professional?
Rapidly aging.
No,
No.
I'm a
Rapidly
mid-career, some would argue
Mid-career.
professional.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You're over the hill.
Over the hill.
You're over
Yeah.
the hill. I'm over the hill. So, as a millennial, what would you say is going on? What would you say is going on in Santa? I mean, they're just screwing around. Why can't they just do it?
Well, I wouldn't say they're screwing around. I think the county and the city are doing a pretty thorough environmental review and looking at what this ordinance is actually going to look like. So it's moving along. It's going to come back to it's going to the planning commission next week, and then it'll be at the city.
This is the city
after
one.
that. That's the city. So they're moving along. It's a really tight. I mean, what's come out of all this is anytime anyone goes to any of these meetings, Josh and I have been at a couple recently where everyone is just scratching their heads because it's super convoluted, and the state and the local jurisdictions aren't really on the same page. The state keeps kind of changing its regulations. They're not going to be finalized until mid-December now, and even at that point, they're not finalized. So there's just a lot going on to get people in parallel, to get the...
One of the questions that got asked at the mayor's debate came from the mayor, from Helene Schneider, which was, do you think that pot dispensaries should be legalized? I mean, the city doesn't have to do this, right?
No.
Is there anybody saying we shouldn't do that other than Janet Wolf?
Well, the only thing that cities everyone has to permit is the 6 plants indoors.
Okay.
So, but other than that, they can say no. The argument is, look, this is happening all over throughout the state. You're going to miss out on all this tax revenue. California cities and counties are largely, in a huge deficit because of employee pension issues. So, they don't. People, I think the argument from city leaders is we don't want to miss out on this when all of our neighbors are going to get the tax benefits and we're just going to get the impacts.
Is the revenue going to be as great as Kelsey alleges?
I don't think Kelsey's alleging that. Have you seen any economic models about this?
I have not seen anything that's concrete. I think people are it's still a guesstimate.
Well, Frank said it the other night. I mean, first he says, I'm afraid nobody's going to go to work because they're all going to be stoned. And then he said, but we don't want to miss out on the money. So he was making the
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't understand how this works. But to me, it seems like another business, liquor stores. If we didn't have liquor stores, would the city of Santa Barbara go under? No. It would be odd, but we wouldn't go under. So I think it'll have an impact. A lot of people thought years ago that gambling was going to change Atlantic City forever and make it a boomtown. Didn't happen.
elected Trump, though.
Well, we have that.
Well, the price of marijuana has gone down and it will go down. So that's going to cut down on tax revenue for sure. I think, and based on people I've talked to who don't have firm numbers but have been studying this for a while, they're optimistic that there will be, millions in the cities and 20 to 30 million in the county. So.
All right, real quickly now, Kevin DeLeon, the president of the state Senate, Democrat from L.A., has decided to challenge U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, who has been in office since the Jefferson administration, which was kind of a surprise. Do the Republicans have any shot at finishing at least second, getting into that runoff in 2018, particularly with the gas tax repeal?
It all depends on the candidate. I haven't heard who that candidate would be.
John Cox? No?
I like John Cox personally. I mean, John Cox has some brilliant ideas, and that may make it very ineffective for him to run a political campaign.
Yeah. Were you surprised by the alacrity with which State Senator Hannah Beth Jackson jumped in on behalf of her left-wing colleague Kevin DeLeon, or did
I was a little bit surprised, but I talked to her a couple of weeks before and about DeLeon and another matter where she disagreed with him. But she was so gingerly. Cadiz water, and which is a whole other issue. But she was so gingerly in her how she expressed her differences, and so normally she's much more punchy. And I was sort of opening the door for her to be critical, and she definitely didn't take it. So I thought that may have been in play.
Do you think it's a short-sighted move on her part?
No.
Really?
I mean, she's going to step down. She can vote who she wants for, who she wants, and she has the freedom to do what she wants at this point.
So when she steps down, then Supervisor Williams goes to her seat, and,
Maybe,
and former City Councilman Francisco goes to his seat.
Yeah.
Is that the way
That's usually how these things work. Yeah.
Huh? Are you ruling it out? He's not ruling it out.
Well, we don't know that Doss is going to step down or jump.
We don't.
We don't?
You know what? Okay.
He's already got a committee. He's got a state
Oh my
Senate
God, that
committee.
is so last year, Jerry.
That's like years ago. It was a fundraising committee. It was-
And you bought the whole thing.
Oh,
line
no,
and
no.
sinker.
You know what?
Come
Okay.
on.
I bet you.
That doesn't mean he couldn't change his mind.
I bet you $50 that he doesn't.
You bet me $50? Okay,
okay.
that's a bet. Okay, and when Doss says, endorses Jim Scafidi and says, I have to commute to Santa Barbara because I have to come all the way from Carpinteria, but he moved to Carpinteria so he could run for Salud's seat, right?
True, yeah, I mean,
This is the
that
world's
was
smallest violin?
one of the attractions was, he needed to be in the first district. Now, maybe he couldn't find something in Santa Barbara in the first district, so maybe both are true.
Boy. All right, well, thanks to tonight's panel, Nick Welsh, Josh Molina, Kelsey Brugger, and Dale Francisco, and thank you for watching. Please visit our website, newsmakerswithjr.com, where you can check out my regular blog posts on the campaign and politics in Santa Barbara, and find our special series of interviews with the candidates for mayor and district council. Thanks tonight to our director, Oscar Gutierrez, to our crew, Suzanne, Paloma, and Debbie, our marketing and branding consultant, Maggie Mabuchi, our law firm, Dewey, Cheatham & Howe, and as always, our top-ranking, high-powered, high-energy senior executive producer, Hap Freund. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.